No cats were harmed in the making of this video. In the book, however, yeah, I'm sorry. Reader's discretion is advised. Bye-bye, friend. I used him as a prop. I hope he wasn't mad. What's up, guys? My name is Moo. I am a college student who loves reading, and I'm here to share that love with all of you. Oh my goodness, we have a crazy one today. I will tell you in short. This book, like, it left me speechless. I'll be so for real. This book, I can't explain it. It was terrible and awful and just, I can't wrap my head around it even till now. And I loved it. If you know me at all at this point, you know that I am a crazy cat lady in training. I love cats, and even though cats were harmed in this book, I still loved this book. So this book is called Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami. So some of you may have heard of this author before, and it is because he is one of the most world-renowned, well-known writers coming from Japan. I personally found his work through none other than RM of BTS, Kim Namjoon, my president. Now, I will be so for real, Namjoon has some crazy taste in books. I've only read 2 that he has recommended, but they're a little insane. Like, when I say he's a genius, I truly mean it, because, like, I think that he can just comprehend things that I will just never be able to in my life. Like, his lyricism, insane, and I love it. Now, why am I talking about his lyricism? Well, because in Butterfly by BTS, Kafka on the Shore is actually mentioned. And at first, when I was reading the first 100 pages, I was just like, why? Haruki Murakami is just a man. Like, I don't get it. And then I kept reading. And I got it. I got why he was so world-renowned. And I do have some problems with him, and I'll say that pretty soon, like later in the video, but I get why he's a world-renowned author. His work is, like, addicting in a way. Like, once I got 100 pages in, I could not put the book down for a second, which was not good because it was finals week when I was reading that book. So instead of, like, studying for finals, I really wanted to read the book, and I probably read the book more than I should have during finals week. But I'd rather be reading anyways. I'm doing okay in school. But yes, I am going to read what I sent my grandma while I was in the middle of reading the book, because I think that perfectly describes how I still feel about the book now that I have finished it as well. It is well written, and it's awful and compelling and disgusting and thought-provoking and trashy and fine art all in one, and I can't stop reading. And I think that that's the perfect sentiment for this book. Now, I know there's definitely some hardcore fans of Murakami, so I don't want to, like, too bad, like, trash his name or anything like that. And I definitely don't want to, because I think that his writing is so good. However, I do agree with what I said. You know, it's fine art and trashy at the exact same time, and I will tell you why. So, before I even read the summary, I do want to say, if you are at all interested in this book after my review, or you're like, oh, Namjoon put this in a song, like, I want to read it, reader discretion is incredibly advised. I am not gonna go into the stuff that's, like, trigger warning worthy in this video, because I just don't want to, because it upset me enough to read it, so I don't really want to talk about it. But I definitely strongly advise you to look up the trigger warnings, to look out, like, the content of this book, because there's just, like, some stuff that, while I do think was really gruesome, was necessary, but at the same time there are a lot of things that it was just like, was this really necessary? Did you have to add this in the book? This is gross and I don't like it. So, you know, even while I say all of that, I do think that it was such a good book, and I actually found it as one of my favorite books that I read this year, which is crazy. If you want to know how I feel about all of the books I read, please check out my new Goodreads account. I just made it. I also made an Instagram account, which I will start posting on very, very soon. Hopefully by the time this video goes up, I'll have posted quite a ton on it. But who knows, you know? I don't know what the future holds. But hopefully a lot more content. If you've gotten this far, make sure to like the video, comment down below anything you want, what you thought about books like this, you know, comment about BTS, because I always like BTS and I brought it up already. If you've read the book, just tell me what you like about it, what you didn't like about it, what you feel about Haruki Murakami. And yeah, if you like this video, if you like the videos that I've been putting out, and you want to see more from me, please subscribe. I am just excited for this new chapter. I'm excited to see where this is going. So yeah, let's get into the summary. The summary is as follows. Kafka on the Shore is powered by two remarkable characters, a teenage boy, Kafka Tamura, who runs away from home, either to escape a gruesome prophecy or to search for his long-missing mother and sister, and an aging simpleton called Nakata, who never recovered from a wartime affliction and now is drawn towards Kafka for reasons that he could not fathom. As their paths converge, Haruki Murakami unfolds readers in a world where cats talk, fish fall from the sky, and spirits slip out of their bodies to make love or commit murder. Kafka on the Shore displays one of the world's greatest storytellers at the peak of his powers. Now, they view this man very highly, and to an extent I get it, and I get why he is praised so highly, but like also, I'll be so for real, I was like, this is just a man. Like, for the first 100 pages of the book, I was just like, this is just a man. Like, why are we giving so much praise to just a man? I will say my first impression of Murakami is like, one, why are things so grossly explicit? And I think part of that is a cultural thing. I think that Japan is a little more sex positive than the US is. And that's because of a long history that I have no time to really get into. But I think that the cultural differences is part of the reason why I found it so jarring. So I don't necessarily want to say that it was like a bad thing, even though I will say I felt that a lot of the explicit stuff was unnecessary and like crude in a way that it just like, it didn't need to be crude. Like, again, I don't really want to go into it because I just found it kind of gross, but there was just a lot of scenes where I just found added no value to the book that it was just like, yeah, I am reading the work of a male writer. So take that what you will. But on the other side of things, I think where Kafka, who was the 15-year-old boy, he was definitely written like a 15-year-old boy, and I think that was interesting. It reminded me even more so, I do not want to live in the mind of a 15-year-old boy, regardless of how intellectually sound he is, because he was a pretty intellectual 15-year-old boy. But I really liked Nakata. As the summary said, Nakata was an older man who was afflicted by something that happened to him during World War II. He was a child during World War II, and this mysterious thing happened to him where all of his classmates fell ill all of a sudden and just passed out in the middle of a forest. And he was the only one that didn't wake up for a prolonged period of time. And every child that woke up besides him was able to go back to normal life like nothing had happened. They had a complete gap in their memory between them passing out and waking up. But Nakata forgot everything before he passed out, and he used to be a smart kid. He used to be able to read and write, that kind of thing, and throughout his entire adult life he never learned to read, he never learned to write. One of my favorite things he says over and over again is, Nakata's not too bright, and it's kind of made me say, like, whenever I do something that is kind of dumb and like I'm not thinking, I'll go, who's not so bright? That kind of thing. just because I don't know, I just loved the way he said it. And he's just an earnest, pure, older man who has the ability to speak to cats, which is fun. I thought that was a really fun element of the story. And yeah, he just is very wholesome, and I really liked him throughout the book. I thought that the two main characters contrasted each other well, and even though I feel like if I met Kafka in real life, I would not like him very much, I did like him as a character. Now this story, it takes place over like a month, if that. It is not a long period of time at all, and I will say that if you don't do well with a book that focuses more on the emotions that are evoked from the characters and the emotions that the story evokes you, and the emotions that you feel when you read the story, I would say this book isn't for you, because nothing really happens externally in this book. It really is a lot of character development more than it is things that really happen to these people over time. And at first I really didn't like it. At first I was like, okay, this book is not for me, because I am just a person that needs external things to happen. Like, I don't just like the internal character growth. Like, I find that boring. But then I wasn't able to put the book down, and it got really interesting really fast, and it picked up really fast, and it was just a bunch of crazy stuff happened at once, but at the same time, like, nothing really happened while that stuff was happening. It was really just like, it didn't move forward linearly, but the events that happened in the book deeply affected both characters, and Kafka changed. Nakata's not so bright, so Nakata didn't really get affected too much by the outside world. But Kafka changed a marginal amount, I believe. I'm not really gonna give away spoilers for this book, because I think that if it's not for you, it's not for you. And if it is for you, then you should definitely go in and read it yourself. But I will say how it made me feel, I think, because I think that's the purpose of this book, to reflect on how it makes you feel. I think that the book serves a purpose in that way, as it makes you really think, and it makes you really feel, and it is definitely not an escapism book. It is a book that, like, kind of attacks you head on with certain issues that happen in the world, and they may not be the most relatable things, but they definitely make you think about the world around you and how people are in their day-to-day lives, and just like crazy things that can happen in the real world, but with a spiritual twist. And I don't mean that in a religious sense, I mean in like actual spirits are part of the world, which again makes sense for Japan, because their spirits are a big part of Japanese culture, much more than they are in the Western world. So this book made me feel a lot of things. It made me feel confused. It made me feel a little cathartic sometimes. It made me feel disgusted. There was just a lot of really intense emotions that were evoked from me reading this book, and I enjoyed that, you know? I am not the type of person that enjoys angst. I don't like feeling super sad when I read stuff. Especially in romantic settings, like, I just think angst is so hit or miss. Like, it either is unnecessary or melodramatic for like so many of the circumstances where angst is involved, and I feel like in a lot of settings angst is used just like unnecessarily. Like, part of the reason why I will put down a rom-com is because they just have a useless understanding that would have been resolved if you would have talked to them for like 5 minutes. But I, weirdly enough, I'm not opposed to feeling disgusted in the right way, like disgusted and horrified, and it has to be in a very, very, very specific way, like in a true crime setting, like in a gruesome way. I am interested in it, usually in a fictional way. Like, I think true crime is interesting, but I think I would want to be disgusted in like a fictional way, because no consequences, no one gets hurt, cats don't get hurt, spoiler alert. I don't want to go into it, but cats do get hurt in this book, and it's very sad. Anyways, but I don't mind feeling like intensely disgusted by something, like in a horrified way. And that book definitely evoked that emotion from me. There were definitely things that I didn't like, and that if I read this book again ever, I would just skip through them because unnecessarily descriptive, babes. Like, I don't want to hear about that stuff. But there were some parts that served a purpose, and I really enjoyed those parts. I think the reason I liked this book so much is just because it made me think and it made me feel. And like I said, I think that if you're going to be a reader, then you should expand your horizons and do things and read things that make you uncomfortable. And this book definitely made me uncomfortable, but the payoff was so worth it, you know? I was really glad that I ended up reading this book at the end of the day. I still don't know how to feel about it exactly, but what I can say is I am glad I read it. I think that while Namjoon has a crazy taste in books, I understand why he likes them. I feel like the books are incredibly intellectual. I see why someone as smart as him would choose to not only pick up these books, but put them in literature. And the crazy thing is like, Namjoon was around my age when he wrote that song, which means he was probably around my age when he read the books. So it is cool knowing that someone that I look up to so much was reading the same books that I was around this age. However, he's a lot smarter than I am, and I have no trouble saying that at all. I believe in my intelligence to some extent, of course. However, I don't think I'll ever be even half as smart as Namjoon from BTS. He really is an incredibly intelligent person, and if you just research the surface level, you would find that out. He's just an incredibly emotionally and intellectually intelligent person. So I definitely am going to be reading more of the books he recommends, and once I do, I will make a video about it because I always like intermixing BTS with my content. But yeah, I guess stay tuned for that when I've read enough books to constitute a video on that kind of analysis. Now, while I did like the book, at the end of the day, I would say that I liked the book more than I didn't. I rated it 4 stars. There were still things that I found kind of frustrating and annoying with it. And I think that mostly stems from who the author is as a person, because I think through his words it is incredibly evident who he is as a person. And I think in a lot of circumstances that's really cool, and it's really cool that people can see the author through their writing. However, when I'm looking through his writing and I'm making assumptions on his character, I can only see negative things. And that is not to say that he's like a bad person or like a person that's not fun to be around or anything like that, because I don't know who he is as a person, and I am only doing this based off an assumption through his writing, through one book I've read of his. I want to read more of his books, but I have only read the one so far. However, I do think that he comes off incredibly pretentious through his writing. And I think that there is a big difference between being passionate about something and sharing it with the world, and just kind of telling people what you know to prove that you know a lot. And I think that Haruki Murakami is both, but I do think that the latter shines through a lot, because in his books he would just go off on tangents, or I guess the characters would go off on tangents about different works, and it's either works of literature or music or things like that, and they would go through these like long tangents about the specific works that just like felt unnecessary. It didn't feel like it had to do much with the characters. More it had to do with like Haruki Murakami going, look, this is what I know about books and music. And I just feel like a piece of literature is not the place for that. You know, if it was one time, I wouldn't have minded it, but it happened so many times. Like, I just feel like it's really weird that multiple characters did it. Even this like trucker guy who wasn't super into like the fine arts, if you will, the like highbrow literature and classical music and stuff like that, even he had a time in the book where like he got really into this one piece of music and he like super highly analyzed it, and it was like that just seems so out of character for this person. Like I understand it a little more with Kafka, I understand it a little more with the library attendant. However, a trucker who has said multiple times that he just doesn't understand this type of stuff, like I just think I didn't like that. And it was also, I think also the unnecessarily explicit scenes. It was just like, you are an adult man. Like, you're writing about a 15-year-old boy, and I understand 15-year-old boys have all sorts of thoughts. However, you know, we didn't need to hear all of them. So, take that information how you will. I just found that pretty redundant. I felt it mostly unnecessary. And I just don't enjoy books with explicit material. So maybe it's more of a me thing, but it was unnecessary, and that's what I dislike, is when it is unnecessary. So while I was reading this, I didn't think in good faith I could recommend it to anyone, but I do think I could recommend it to people. I will say I only recommend this book to adults. I do not want to recommend this book to children. I just don't. Like, it's not for kids. I wanted to read this book when I was a kid because it was like, oh my gosh, my favorite person, my favorite celebrity read this book. I want to read it too. But I'm so glad that I didn't. I bought this book, like, again, 3 years ago, so I was like 17. I'm not saying like it's bad for a 17-year-old to read this book. I'm just saying that I, in good faith, can't recommend it to someone under the age of 18. I think that if you are to read this book, you need to come to it with an open mind, and especially if you are not Japanese yourself, especially if you're from the Western world, definitely come in with that nuance that you are not a part of this culture and you maybe don't understand it completely. But I recommend this book to adults who want to expand their thinking, who want to expand their minds, who are okay with being a little uncomfortable, because I do think this is a book worth reading if you really want to read it. Again, I say look up the content warnings, because there are some pretty bad scenes in this book, but I am definitely glad I read it. So if you read through the content warnings and you think that you can stomach it, I definitely do recommend this book to the people that I listed above. So yeah, I am going to end things here. Yeah, this is all I have to say for now. So once again, if you liked this video, like it, and comment down below the book that expanded your thinking the most that you read, because I think I'd like to hear that a lot. I want to look into more books that really like challenge my thinking, because I think that it is good to be challenged in that way, and it helps you learn, and I want to continue learning throughout my entire life. I guess I don't really need to worry about that right now because I'm in college, so I am going to be learning for the next couple years, but I still definitely very much want to choose to expand my thinking. And if you liked this video and you for some reason want to see more of the chaos, this wasn't too chaotic, but you know, there's some other chaotic videos, subscribe. It will be so happy to have you. I am just very excited for this journey ahead. Make sure to follow all my socials linked below, and without further ado, this has been Moo. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye!